Well, Congress wasting no time enacting President Trump's hardline vision on immigration. The Senate passing the Laken Riley Act last night, named for a 22-year-old nursing student killed by an undocumented Venezuelan migrant last year. That bill would dramatically expand the federal government's powers to detain undocumented immigrants. It's on track to become the first piece of legislation that Trump signs into law in his second term.
The hotly contested and controversial immigration bill known as the Laken Riley Act has now officially passed in both chambers of Congress and is now being sent to Donald Trump's desk for his signature to sign it into law. Now, it got support from dozens of Democrats, while others argue that this bill robs immigrants, migrants of due process. So let's talk about why those arguments are being made. So the name of the bill, of course, refers to the Georgia college student who was murdered by a Venezuelan immigrant who was in the United States illegally. 26-year-old Jose Ibarra had been cited for shoplifting by a Georgia police department, but Immigration and Customs Enforcement actually didn't issue a detainer for him, and he was not taken into custody, sadly. So the Laken Riley bill's main purpose is to essentially clamp down on people who are in the United States illegally, who are accused of committing nonviolent crimes, so they can't go on to commit additional violent crimes. According to Congress's summary of the bill, and this is the exact wording, under this bill, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, must detain an individual who is one, unlawfully present in the United States or did not possess the necessary documents when applying for admission, and two, has been charged with, arrested for, convicted of, or admits to having committed acts that constitute the essential elements of burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting. So look, the key word here is arrested for. So the individual doesn't even necessarily have to be convicted of committing a crime like shoplifting in order to be deported by Border Patrol or ICE. So this is what most opponents of the bill are focusing on. They feel that this robs the individual of due process because there hasn't really been any way of adjudicating whether the allegations against this individual is true. Now, of course, supporters of this bill will argue, well, the person who's in the country illegally has already committed a crime. But others disagree. Under the current system, immigration officials use their discretion to first detain people with violent criminal records. But this law would basically override that discretion and include individuals who have simply been accused of committing nonviolent acts like shoplifting and theft. Cenk.
Yeah, so a couple of things here. First off, some activists are saying that this is a mass deportation bill. I don't want you guys to get misled by that because there is an actual potential mass deportation that Trump has threatened. This is not it. If you get confused about that, then you're gonna make mistakes about how to react when the actual one comes. So I would have voted against this bill because it's just people who are charged or arrested. No, they gotta be convicted. And so, because otherwise you could just accuse anyone of shoplifting and then have them deported. So no, I don't agree with that. Now, if they were convicted, I'm sure that we'd have a good, healthy debate over that. And we should change our poll question because we have polls in the live chat all the time. You should check those out when we're live at 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. But so I think a lot of people would in our audience would vote against this act. But I'm curious how you guys would feel about it if it was just a conviction, because if all of them are very serious, burglary, theft, etc. Shoplifting is arguable in terms of is that a serious crime, but look, you're here in in an undocumented fashion. I don't think it's too much to ask for you to follow the laws. So like they arrest you on jaywalking or civil disobedience. No. But these are pretty serious crimes. And then they added, by the way, I don't know why they didn't add this before, but a couple of Republicans added something like murder. Yeah, for murder, I think that's fair, right? And Cornyn added for attacking a police officer. I don't know if it has an asterisk unless you're doing it for Donald Trump. But if it's for serious felonies, yeah, this is what the American people voted for. And so you can choose to be outraged that some undocumented immigrants or criminals are going to be deported, but that outrage is not going to work with the American people. So this was one of the core issues they voted for. They haven't gotten to non-criminals yet. When they get to non-criminals, that's when we all got to rally and say, hell no.
So additionally, there's a second part of this legislation that I think is interesting, and I'm very curious what you think about it, Cenk. So it also grants power to attorneys general to sue the federal government if they can prove, if they can show their states are being harmed over failure to implement national immigration policies, as well as allow states to sue the Department of Homeland Security for harm caused to citizens allegedly due to illegal immigration. So state officials could also demand that the State Department stop issuing visas from countries that do not accept people who the United States is deporting. So we've run into some issues with that as it pertains to Venezuela, for instance. Venezuela says that they will not accept Venezuelans who the United States has deported. So that has led to some issues when it comes to the deportation plans of the Trump administration. But I think that's a really interesting element of this bill. And as of yesterday, the bill did pass both chambers. The House vote was 263 to 156, with 46 Democrats joining all Republicans in support of this measure. The bill passed the Senate on Monday by a vote of 64 to 35, winning 12 Democratic votes. And so among those 12 Democrats, let's put up this graphic and you can see who we're talking about here. You have Senator Cortez Mastro, Jackie Rosen, unsurprisingly, John Fetterman, the list goes on and on. These are some of the more moderate to conservative Democrats in the Senate.
Although Ruben Gallego is on the list and he is presumably going to be one of the more progressive senators, but why is he on the list? Because he's from Arizona. And Mark Kelly, the other Democrat from Arizona, is also on the list. And that's exactly what I was trying to explain to you guys earlier. You're not going to be the senator from Arizona next time around if you don't vote yes on this bill. And why? Because it's not a mirage. The voters of Arizona are in favor of this. So you can get mad at them if you like, but they are voting with their constituents.
Actually, I want to read a comment from Gallego because he felt the need to put out a statement expressing why he decided to vote in favor of the Laken Riley Act. He says, Arizonans know the real life consequences of today's border crisis. We must give law enforcement the means to take action when illegal immigrants break the law to prevent situations like what occurred to Laken Riley. I will continue to fight for the safety of Arizonans by pushing for comprehensive immigration reform and increased border security. So look, I agree with you. The biggest flaw in this bill, which almost certainly is going to be signed into law by Donald Trump, is the fact that it deals with people who haven't even been convicted of a crime. And I think the due process is important. You do run into some issues though when it comes to some of these states that have really declared that they don't want to prosecute people who have committed crime like shoplifting. So I think that's probably what lawmakers had in mind when they drafted the bill the way they did. But still, you can't do away with due process. I think that's super unfair. And I think that's legitimately the biggest flaw I see in this legislation.
Yeah, last two things for me. Look, I'm a naturalized citizen. So when I had a green card, I was super careful. Meaning, whatever that means, it's not like I had the intent to break any law anyway, but if there was anything within a million miles of close, I wouldn't do it because I was worried about, making sure that I got my citizenship. If you're an undocumented immigrant and you're going around doing shoplifting or theft or burglary, I mean, it's hard for me to muster up an enormous amount of sympathy for you. So I don't know if that makes me a bad guy, but sorry.
No, it doesn't. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Listen, you're already in the country, undocumented status. Come on. Just don't commit crimes. It's not that difficult. Don't commit crimes because you're here without proper documentation and you're gonna you run the risk of being deported. And so I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think anyone's a bad person for making that argument. We've got our own homegrown criminals, okay? We don't need to import criminals from around the world.
Yeah, and last two things. If Venezuela doesn't take them back, I don't understand how that works. Here's what I would do. I would fly them to Venezuela, have them get off the plane, and have the plane fly back. What are you gonna do? Fly them back to America? Like, so I'm not interested in you not taking your criminals back. That's not a thing I'm interested in. All right, lastly, the states being able to sue the federal government, I think is nonsense. So the reason they put that in there is if a Democrat becomes president again, every red state wants to sue them and go, oh, in our opinion, you're not doing enough. Even though the American people voted you into office and they wanted your immigration policy, Alabama disagrees. So no, we have the Supreme Court and we're gonna use the activist judges on the Supreme Court to say that we're right even if we lose elections on the national level. So I hate that part of the bill too.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.